These are much more just aesthetic-wise. Like I took a lot of influences from Korean culture, obviously, and just kind of like mixed together traditional elements, say like parts of a hanbok, which are a Korean traditional dress, or parts of an old folk painting, and then combine it with more modern elements like modern patterns, modern fabrics, and like things from a children's book, just all over. Just a combination, because that's me. I'm a combination of it all. So I'm an artist, right? I paint murals, I paint gallery paintings, and I also design clothing. I get some of my paintings, turn them into wearable art. Those are the things I focus on mainly. Yeah. Really, I just know that I've been drawing and painting, creating ever since I could hold a pencil. Like it's just always been a thing. It's just always been a part of me. I'd always be buried in my sketchbooks and I'd have like mounds of it at home, you know. It's just how it was, yeah. So I grew up with my grandparents. My mom left at a young age, and at that time too, my dad was gone. He didn't live with me until I was about 16. So just with my grandparents at home, they're very traditional, very Korean, can't speak English. And I was left alone a lot of times, and I also had trouble really expressing my feelings when I was younger. There was a lot of like, not exactly silencing, not in like the very like strict kind of way, but more of, I took on a lot of pain onto myself and just kind of bottled everything up. So because of that, I couldn't tell people how I really felt, including my own family, because I was afraid of harming them or pushing them away because of abandonment issues and all that stuff. So I turned to art. You know, with art, I had the freedom to just completely express myself and not have any repercussions, or I could feel safe. So I think I gravitated towards art in that sense. But in hindsight, I look back at the art that I used to do and I'm just like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. I was in this kind of space at that time. It was just a reflection of whatever I was going through. And a lot of that kind of got depleted when I was in art school as an adult, because my school in particular taught a lot about technique and classical training, and that was a training we had to go through in order to learn about rendering and how to make things look really realistic. It was great, but in terms of regaining that connection of art and the artist, that was gone for a while. So I had to get that back as an adult, yeah. I went to the Academy of Art University, which is in San Francisco. I left my home for about 6 years to study there, and I was illustration for the first 3 years because I always thought I loved doodling, I loved doing like Photoshop painting, so I figured I should just go in illustration. And then about 3 years in, I took my first painting class because it was kind of required even for illustration, kind of a blend in. So I did that and I fell in love with painting, with oil paint, and I was like, okay, I think I need to switch over. And initially I switched over because I felt like I was lacking in skill. So I was here and I took my first year online, which is a horrible choice because, I mean, I think anyone will agree online classes, you can't get everything, you know? Yeah. And I was here and I was like 18, 19, fresh out of high school, like working at a late night bar as well as partying all the time because I was young, and then trying to do school. Like, I was not at my best. I did not learn everything as much as I could, even with the online class. So I was foolish and took a lot of my foundations online. And then when I actually got up to San Francisco and go to class, my first class I was in, it was anatomy class. I looked at everyone's like first drawing around me, and then I was just like, oh fuck, like everyone is so good. Everyone is so good and I suck. This is bad. You know, I thought I was like the best in my online class, but that didn't mean shit. So once I got up there, I was like, I need to practice my foundations all over again. I'm late, I gotta catch up. So when I took my first painting class and just learned a bit more of the foundation technique, I was like, this is awesome, I wanna just keep doing it. And then eventually it became like switching over to fine art because I enjoyed the freedom. With illustration, it was a lot more client-based and what they wanted, and with fine art, it was just, I can do whatever I wanted, is what I thought. I think it's still true, but yeah, so that's why I did the switch. I learned all the techniques and I got that drilled in me, which is awesome because I have that in my like the back of my head. Like I can do that if I need to pull that out. And it wasn't until my final year, my senior year, when I took a class that explored more concept. It was really like the only class that taught that. So through that, I learned more about expressionism, and all that kind of came out while at the same time I was going through therapy for my mom thing. So it all kind of coincided my senior year. I was exploring myself. I was dealing with things that I haven't dealt with in years or ever actually. And then I was also trying to open up my art connection to myself as well. So all of it just kind of like blossomed at the same time. And yeah, I just haven't turned back since. Yeah. This one is a depiction of a Korean shaman woman. And honestly, it was a part of a bigger composition like this. And this was in the center, so it's just titled center because of that reason alone. But it's likewise to this one, a combination of traditional elements with modern Korean elements. And like you got the sunglasses behind her, it's a bit more abstracted, so it's hard to tell. But there's also mixed media elements where I use things like tape and collage and put things on top. So you got traditional elements in terms of the paint medium, as well as modern elements in terms of things getting literally collaged on.
Okay.
Oil paint compared to, say, like acrylic paint is a lot more toxic for one, so that's not cool. But other than that, I love everything about it, which it's a lot more richer in colors. It stays wet longer, so you have a lot more time to fudge things around, a lot more forgiving in my opinion. And yeah, compared to acrylics, for me, it's a lot more richer. Some people can achieve that oil paint look with acrylic, and that's amazing. Tell me how to do that, because I can't. But yeah, I just love oil paint. It's classic, it's beautiful, and there's a lot of depth to it. And yeah, when I was a student, I really thought, especially as I was exploring a lot of things with my mom and showing that through my art, like, you know, you gotta have art that's true and genuine, and you gotta not be fake with your art is what I thought. I thought being a sellout was lame. I thought having marketable art was lame at that time. And I was like, that's never gonna be me, like I'm never gonna do that, and that's all bullshit, whatever. I had that thought. And I mean, there's a part of me that still thinks that, but it's changed. My views have shifted. It's not so like Nazi, narrow and closed in, you know? It's more of like whatever makes you happy for me. But yeah, there are definitely those subgroups of people who think that. I know, because I was one of them. So don't think that way now, but yeah, just for the record. Well, art for me is just communication, you know, so as an artist, I just want to communicate whatever it is that I'm going through. Like I said, I used to have stricter kind of views on what art should be, maybe on the philosophy of art, but I've dropped a lot of that now. And for me, it's just, you just gotta have fun with it. You gotta be able to just put as much of yourself out there onto your work, you know? Maybe, for example, if someone's really into, like I said, painting Diamond Head, or that's their like passion, go for it all the way, you know? If your art is about having some kind of message or something else behind it, go for it all the way. Don't half-ass it. And really, through that kind of communication, you're going to reach out to someone else or a larger audience, as long as you are true to yourself. Whatever it is that you're doing, you're connecting visually with someone, communicating with them in a way that words can't. So that can have many ripple effects of, you know, some kind of, I don't know if I should say change, or just some kind of effect on another person. And I think that's the most important thing, is to affect the viewer in some kind of way. Like for me personally, I always said that I want to elicit emotion, an emotional response from the person viewing my art. And I think that still honestly stands true. That's still what I want to elicit in a viewer. So it's the most important thing. Yeah.
That's cool.
Or, let me see. Is this
yeah.
too tight to film? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just tell me about it.
Yeah, so this one is titled Comfort Woman, and it's related to the people who got kind of like sexually tormented by the Japanese Imperial Army back in like 1910. This is when Japan colonized Korea at the time and just for 35 years. It was a long while, and it was kind of recent. So we have some Korean women banding around this rape of a woman happening here who's actually Japanese, and it's taken from like Japanese woodblock prints from like the 1800s. But it's not just the Korean women who were terrorists, actually Philippines too, and a bunch of other territories that they occupied, and even their own Japanese women that they would take as sexual slaves. So they're kind of like banding together around this rape that's happening. And then in the back, is all the names of the officially recorded Korean grandmas who were brave enough to come forward and give their names for the record of the victim count for the Comfort Woman. So this has all their names on here, and this entire structure is actually a folding screen that's used for Korean ritual ceremonies that I used to do about twice a year with my family until we got a little too old to do all of it together because it's a lot of work. But basically it's about honoring one's ancestors. So even though these are not my ancestors exactly, I still want to create something that's kind of in honor of them, or yeah, I guess you can say my tribute to them. That I've painted throughout my whole life. Favorite piece?
Sure, yeah.
It has to be my mom series, I think, because I think that was the most, in terms of like all of my emotions coming out onto the canvas, that was my mom series, the Last Known Location series, and I always think those are my favorite pieces, yeah.
Do you still have those series with you?
I do, they're rolled up over there, but yeah, I take them out just for the shows, but otherwise they're kind of tucked away, yeah.
If you think about the process that you went through with creating that and painting it and all the emotion that's in there and everything encompassed, what would you miss most if that was gone or somehow lost?
If the paintings were lost?
What would you miss
Man,
most?
that would hurt. I think because for me, seeing the Last Known Location paintings are a reflection of what I went through and how I rose above it. Because the paintings, there's 6 total, and they start off in the order I painted from to be really dark and muddy, and that's how I was always kind of painting in art school, and I realized that's always how I was painting before that as well, because it was a reflection of what was going on inside me, right? So throughout the series, my paintings became brighter, and towards the last painting, it was rainbow colors, colors that I never would have used, ever. And since then, it's always been bright. So to lose these paintings would, I mean, it's material stuff, so it's not a big deal, but that change, that transition is in this series, and it would be sad to see that, gone. But that's what I would miss the most.